Nick, welcome. So glad that we are able to do this together. I haven't seen you on a podcast lately, so hopefully it's going to be good news for people watching this, want to know more about what you're up to and everything. But how are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's funny that you mentioned about the podcast because I feel like working for yourself, no one asked me to be on a podcast anymore. It's so fascinating to me. I wrote a LinkedIn post about this a couple weeks ago, maybe it was a month or so ago.
Yeah.
But I've noticed when you work for yourself, you
Uh-huh.
don't get invited to any of the events anymore. Like you're treated as someone that has no budget, no authority, no spend control,
It's so
anything
funny.
like
Yeah?
that. But it's the furthest thing from the truth. I have so many clients where I run their budget for them. So
Imagine.
people just have the wrong mindset, but I've been
That's
good.
weird.
I've been really good. It's can't complain. Things have been great. Things have been busy. Summer is over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to explore a few areas, of course. I need to look when I got to know you, and I think I have some clues. At some point, I think you wrote the small ebook on ABM and you put it on Gumroad. I downloaded it. You remember? And I did invite you to my
I do
former
remember that.
employer.
Yeah.
You did a session on ABM. I think you
Yep.
were all in on ABM, but time has fly since then. I've always been a fan of you. You're a big inspiration for me. The
Oh,
way
thank you.
you are authentically portraying your what you do, how you engage with others. Of course, with the beauty of this ecosystem of LinkedIn, we get to see other comments, and sometimes I like even more your comments than your post. But yeah, I'm looking forward to explore a little bit more the human side of go-to-market. I think this is where you have carved like a personal brand for yourself,
Mm,
beyond the brand, an expertise, diving into your journey from, I think you started in field marketing, right?
yep.
Then you, of course, went all in on creator,
Yeah.
advisor, evangelist, and so on. But before we get started, I want to know, Nick, today, if you meet someone in an elevator, for example, how do you introduce yourself? What do you do?
It's a good question. I usually tell people, listen, I've been an operator in the B2B marketing world for about 15 years and then, have started my own thing these last couple of years, but don't lose sight that I am still an operator at heart. Like I still love getting into the weeds of things and tackling problems and tackling go-to-market problems. And I think there is plenty of them out there. So I try to just tell people, listen, hey, I'm just one of you, but don't treat me any differently. Like I'm here to share my opinion, share my
Yeah.
thoughts, and see how we can help each other. Like ultimately, there's enough space in the world for all of us to win and share best practices, share what we learn. And I'm not a negative person. I'm a very go with the flow type of person. I'm very
So
low
true.
key. There's not much that I dislike, but let's just be good humans.
Hmm. I love that. I love that. Your early years in field marketing, how do you think that has shaped a little bit the way you think about brand and demand today? If I want to bring it back to some lingos that we all.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and again, I've done field marketing for about 12 years now in-house. And so field marketing really taught me everything starts with
Oh.
people, the
Yeah.
relationships, and again, relationships on top of that, but the relationships that I built with sales, with meeting customers, that mattered more than any of the polished campaigns that I put out there. And throughout all of those early years, and again, I got lucky. I don't know. I came across field marketing. I didn't really know what it was. I was doing channel marketing for a company that was in the, I don't know, they were in like the fiber optic world. It's kind of interesting, but I was doing channel marketing and then it allowed me to get into tech and do field marketing because it was pretty similar. But those early years showed me brand is built through trust, the small moments where people feel understood. And so even today, and again, I'm still doing a little bit of field marketing today. There's a lot of other things that I'm doing, but even today, when I think about demand, I think about the conversations, not the conversions. And I think that's what everything should come back to. It starts with the conversations, it starts with the people. How do you make everything that you do more human in today's world, especially when it's driven by AI and everything
Yeah.
out there is they're slapping an AI tag on everything.
Yeah. That's a good way. But if I want to be the devil's advocate, how do you scale this approach? When it's very embedded into a culture, if a company is very transactional in the way, because I've known a few of them, very transactional in the way they do business, how do you then try to influence the direction that they're taking with that? Or is it like, okay, I can't go there with them and I need to focus elsewhere?
Yeah, I mean, you can try. I think there's small things that you can do to make things more people first, more human. And I think of things, it's simple stuff on like the marketing side. It's like, how do you make your pricing more transparent? I look at a lot of technology, and the first thing that I do is I go on a company's website and I check out their pricing page. And if I don't see any pricing and it's, hey, talk to sales, I have no interest. I will go find something else because I don't have time to sit on 3 different calls before I
Yeah.
even get pricing. Think about that. Let's be honest. You've brought in a lot of technology in the past. And when you want to buy some type of technology, you hop on a call with an SDR or BDR. Shout out to them. They have a tough job for sure, but you're not getting pricing from them. It's a qualification call, discovery call. Great. All right. Now I'm hopping on with an AE, probably getting a demo, still probably not getting pricing at that
Yeah.
point. And it's like your third call before you get pricing, sometimes maybe even longer than that. And
Yeah.
I just want to see the pricing, see
But
and
it's
even a
custom,
ballpark
Nick.
pricing.
It's custom pricing.
Exactly. And so something as simple as that, like just be transparent with your pricing.
Yeah.
Another thing is like your marketing emails. Like I talk to a lot of companies and like I get a lot of marketing emails and it's like from marketing at xyzcompany.com. And you could tell it's just another boring copy and paste email. Like why can't those emails come from a real person? Even if those real people aren't the ones that are replying, I don't care. Like put a face to it, put an actual name to it, because I can tell you when you do that, and I've tested this many times now, when I send emails of companies that, people where they follow me or whatever, they see my name, they see my, the subject line or whatever, they're opening that email because it's coming from me. They more or less, they don't care what the actual subject is. They say, hey, I know Nick, I see him, like, I'm going to open the email. And I have people tell me that all the time. I opened this email because I saw it was coming from you. And I knew that you worked at this company.
Love that.
It's small changes. I'm not saying that you have to, rip up your entire organization. Start small and continue to build over time. But there's probably about, 30 to 40 things that you can do from a marketing organization that makes you more human, makes you more people first. But you just have to chop away to get there.
Yeah. And it's uncomfortable for many of them, right? To
Yeah.
go in that direction. It's easier to just design another email and blast it or start a campaign and blast it. Do you think a company needs to have like a person in front of the company that is vocal, a subject matter expert, in order for this strategy of people first to work? Or
No, I don't think you need a specific person, but I think it helps for sure, because I'll use Alice as an example. I was there for 2 years and I drove $2 million in pipeline through my content. 60% of that closed. So 1.2 million just from LinkedIn content of people saying, hey, that's how I saw you, or that's how I came inbound, things like that. And again, being able to build those conversion points of, hey, listen, they're opening the email because it's coming from me. They're opening their, LinkedIn conversational ad because it was coming from me. My face was on it. They're attending this webinar or event because they see that I'm speaking at it. Now that helps. And I think it's important, but I think still just having an individual, regardless of who they are, it just makes it more human. And think about, the number of companies that put out ebooks, for example. Like, why can't the person or people that have contributed to that ebook be listed on the author page, like versus the company? Like, yeah, the company's there, but there should be a byline or something of the individuals who contributed to that. Put who they are, what their title is, a picture of them. I would appreciate that so much more versus saying, hey, here's just another ebook from this company. Who are the people that contributed to that? I would love to know, because I value their thoughts maybe. And I want to reach out and say, hey, listen, this was a really fantastic thought. I appreciate you sharing this and this. I learned a ton from it. So I don't think you need people that are, an evangelist or someone that's going out there, being a part of your brand. I think it helps, but I think there's a ton of individuals internally that can be seen as creators that just have to be empowered. And I think the empowerment or lack of empowerment is what's causing a lot of them to not show up.
Love that. I love that. And I remember having debates in the past where even just on a simple thing like a blog post, do you put the author in case the person's leaving the company? Oh my God, You know, come on, people. It's not the end of the world. Let's give credit to whoever is. And then, like you're saying, it may be a good way for someone to reach out to this individual and have a conversation about the content they just posted if they are behind the content, if they believe in the
Exactly.
content that they just posted, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then think of it, these are all touch points along the journey, like the buyer's journey. It's just like, why would you gate that information of who these people are? It's so simple, but it's a thing. A lot of bigger companies have a challenge doing all of this because, like you said, there's a lot of red tape around it. It's challenging to change a lot of the political aspects within these companies, but it goes a long way. But you have to have someone that's going to champion that change
Yeah,
internally, I think.
I believe so too. Community plays a big part to your philosophy, right?
Mm.
How do you then guide a company that wants to get started from scratch with a community? They don't have a community. Let's say they want to start building one. Is there specific steps that you would recommend this team to be taking?
Well, I think you have to define what community is. And there's a lot
Yeah,
of different examples of what community is. Like community could be, LinkedIn, for example. It could be a Slack community, Discord community. Like it could be in-person meetups. And this happens more on the IT side, but think of all those like user groups that like to get together. That's still a community of people that get together to talk
true.
about different things. Now, community only works if it's built for people, not for your pipeline. And I think that's where a lot of companies get hung up. They think of like communities, all right, great. I'm going to create a customer community to help with retention. It's the wrong mindset. You should be building a customer community because you want to help people. Now, that help is going to ultimately turn into retention for your customers and possibly upsell opportunities as well. But you have to give and give before you ask. And I think it has to feel like a space where people are valued, not extracted. And I think so many companies that build these communities, whatever it is, a Facebook group even, these communities are not for value and people aren't valuing. Like they're extracting the people that are in there and they're just putting it as a line item for these exec meetings that are happening. It's the wrong mindset. So you have to start by asking, what problem do these people share and how can we make them feel seen? That's the foundation of belonging. And I think so many people miss that because, again, they create these communities because they think of the pipeline. How is it going to impact the business objectives? And I'm not saying that you should ignore those altogether. I think it's one of the KPIs and metrics that you should look at, but you have to solve it for the people. And in my mind, and I've built lots of communities, both in-house and just in the past in general, a true community lasts when people show up for each other, not just for the brand. And I think that's an important piece for a lot of people that are possibly considering building a community to think about too.
Do you find in your past experience that there's a specific setup of a community? You mentioned a few channels like Slack, LinkedIn. Is there specific ones that tend to do better than others?
I feel like Slack does pretty well because, I mean, if you think about it, in the B2B tech world, most companies are using Slack, unless you're using Teams, which if you are, I feel bad for you. I'm sorry. I've used Teams and I just get absolutely frustrated every time I have to be forced to use it. Now, again, it's another Slack icon that you have to go in and check. And like, I could tell you, I've actually removed most of them, but at one point, and this was probably peak COVID, like when I looked at my Slack, there was 20 different icons of different, companies, communities, groups that I was a part of. And it was just so many badge icons of, hey, missed notification, missed notification. And I was just like, that in itself creates an overwhelm for people. And it's just like, all right, listen, Slack probably makes sense because that's where a lot of conversation happens. And I think you'll still have a lot of people that are in there. But I do think there should be some type of resource hub or content hub or something. And, in the past, I've used Mighty Network. I know Circle's out there. I know there's other platforms that are out there as well, where it's like you can house a lot of the foundational knowledge of templates, processes, frameworks, things like that. But then it becomes something where it's like, all right, so listen, I have to go to Slack to listen to conversations, jump into things. I have to go join webinars on another platform. I have to go check this other platform to get everything else. And it's tough because if you built everything in, say, Circle or one of these other platforms, you could have some conversations there, but then people still aren't going to check it because they're like, oh, it's not part of my everyday workflow. So I don't think there's any one good example that works well. And I mean, I've seen lots of communities out there that have struggled on Slack or have struggled on these other platforms. And it's just, I
Mm.
can't, adoption isn't there. And even when
Yeah,
I ran my own community with Mark at TAC, we had so many people, and I would give an exit interview anytime anyone churned. And the biggest thing that I got from people was like, hey, I just don't have the time, or hey, I'm in too many of these. The price it wasn't an issue. It was a time commitment. And I think
yeah,
that's what you're going to run into no matter what.
I agree. Time commitment, shifting to time commitment, LinkedIn. What would you instruct? Because you're really good at LinkedIn, and I need to acknowledge you for being consistent. You're amazing, and you changed your style lately. I must say, I may have noticed something but your shorter sentences, very long. So, what would you recommend someone that is wanting to get traction on LinkedIn to stick to in terms of process? Not, we hear the same advice all the time. You have to be consistent. Yeah, but I need to find my voice. I need to find my unique point of view. How do you carve that for yourself? And how do you always make sure that you have sufficient IDs? How do you log your IDs?
Yeah, I
And
mean, it's tough because I think AI has made it super easy for everyone to be a creator out there.
yeah,
Now, you mentioned a good thing. It's like, how do you find your voice? You have to, if everyone talked about demand gen, which I think a lot of people do, it's tough because everyone has kind of a very similar mindset. Like you have to have kind of, I don't know if it's a contrarian thought or like you have to stand for something.
yeah.
Whatever that is, people first is a good example of this. Like,
Mhm.
is people first is a good mindset, and how do you make things more human? But what does that actually look like, and how do you put that into a playbook or an approach and tie it to actual things? Now, one thing I've noticed is these last 2 years, I became very self promotional because again, when you're running your own business, it's like, all right, great, I got to run, I got to do the media network, got to get subscribers get there, got to get, subscribers to the newsletter, the services side of the business, the community. And I
Mhm.
feel, I was trying to do that and drive members and growth and everything, but I feel like I lost a lot of what I originally wanted to do on LinkedIn, which was just help people. How can I
Right.
share things that I've worked on that have been helpful? And so I've realized these last couple of, weeks and months that I've gotten back to that. And I've just shared about things that like, hey, I'm seeing this, or things that are, impacting myself. And I don't have specific, like, I don't keep my IDs anywhere. Like the ideas of, hey, this is what I want to talk about. Honestly, a lot of my ideas come from just reading other people's content where I've actually started to double down on the comments because LinkedIn is pushing comments more than ever right now. So like I'm noticing like, hey, if I can add value through some type of my own personal experience, storytelling, hey, here's what I would do. Those are getting sometimes, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 views on a comment that's
Mm.
driving so much more traffic. Like I am seeing last week, I actually just posted about this the other day, but last week I had about 130,000 profile views where my profile was surfaced. 67% of that came from LinkedIn comments. Now, if
Wow.
you take 130,000 and what's 67% of that? It's 85,000 people saw my profile through comments alone, which is
Wow.
it's mind blowing, right? So it's for me, I'm trying to double down and comment on anywhere between 25 and 50 people a day. I don't have a playbook or a process of, hey, these are the same 25 or 50 people that I do. It's really, I'm just scrolling and, hey, I found that interesting. It's stuff where it's like, I know I can add value to that conversation. So I'm going to jump
Mhm.
into it. And I do 3 different types of comments. I kind of have a short, snippy, hey, one line, like, witty, funny. It doesn't add a ton of value, but it makes me laugh. So, like, I have that. And then I have a very longer style that's like a more of a playbook approach where it's, hey, listen, I've seen this work this way. Here's what I would add to it. Those do incredibly well. Take a little bit more time,
Mm.
develop your thoughts around. And then I have
Yeah.
kind of like a middle of the road, like, not short, not super long, but adds a little bit of value as well. And those do pretty well too. So I try to do the second and third one, but again, it's based on time. Like you have to time block your stuff to be able to get it in there because
Yeah.
otherwise you're going to be doom scrolling all day. But I would say start with commenting, have a strong point of view on something because my posts are getting no traction at all. So I'm just using as the post as just a way to continue to pump out content, but I'm doing like 2 to 3 posts a day now. And I don't care how many people actually see it. Like I'm
Mhm.
using that as a way to what do I care about? And then I'm using the comments as a way to drive profile views.
Love that. And it organizes our thought as well, right?
Yeah.
It's like people, I'm talking to people and they're like, I don't have time for this. But at the same time, it's a complement to what your daily life is.
Yep.
And sometimes just a way of solidifying some frameworks or whatever that you're working on actually during your day with a client or an experience you have with a client at the moment, right?
Exactly. And so many people, like you said, so many people say they don't have the time. Like, you don't have to devote hours to this. Like, I'm talking like you could probably do this in an hour a day. It's just, again, you have to time block it. You have to fit it into your day. And then it becomes habit. I've been doing this now for 5.5 years. So it's just become habit. Someone's like, how did you've posted, thousands and thousands of posts and now all these comments over the years. It's like, how do you have time? I'm just like, I just integrate it into my day. I don't know. It's just part of, just like you go and you get a coffee or you go
That's
and
it.
you do whatever you need to do. Like you go to the
Yep.
gym, like it's just part of your day now.
Yeah. Are you intentional on the individuals that you are commenting on or following? Do you use a platform like Taplio or something?
No, I don't use any platforms. I'm not purposeful of who I comment on either. It's literally, I'll just be scrolling. I'll
Wow.
set, all right, great. For this hour, I'm just going to kind of scroll through and find like 25 people that I know I can comment on. And like sometimes because you start to comment on a lot of the same people, they
Mhm.
start to show up every single day when you do this. And again, it's heavy marketers, but there's some people, Justin Welsh, for example, he just pops up. I mean, uh,
Yep.
he's built a big audience and that's cool. But like I comment on his and I've realized if you can comment on like some of those bigger names and you can get there kind of early,
Mm.
it leads to a ton of profile views. Now, granted, those probably aren't the right people, especially if you're in like the marketing world. Like I should probably have a better process around this, but right now I don't. So
Seems to work. And it
yeah,
seems to work, right?
yeah.
Just shifting gears a little bit, like I think on the personal level, you tear your ACL last year, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's coming up on a year. Yeah.
Wow. I hope you're doing better, right?
I'm doing a lot better. Yeah, I would say 99% of the time I feel pretty good. I was actually, weirdly enough, I went to go get a coffee this morning. And fun fact, there's a, Dunkin' Donuts is big in my area and, it's not the best coffee, but it does the job. And so this location, like 2 minutes from my house, they
Mhm.
just redid it a couple of weeks ago. And so they were having a grand reopening. And my wife, she leaves early. She's a teacher. She called me. She's like, hey, I was just listening to the radio. And it says, if you're one of the first 100 people that get there, you get free coffee through the end of the year. I was just like, all right, cool. And this was, at 7:30 in the morning and I couldn't get there till 9. I was like, it's probably going to be gone. So I went at 9 o'clock and I got the coffee, went in, ordered something. And I was like, all right, they didn't say anything. So I must not have won. And I come outside and there's a tent and they're like, hey, you want to spin the wheel? I was like, oh, I love wheels. Absolutely. Spun the wheel, won a free hat. And then they're like, do you use the Dunkin's app? And I was like, I do. And they were like, here you go. And it was a number. It was like number 23. And I was like, all right, what does this mean? They're like, oh, go to her and you'll get free coffee through the rest of the year, one a day. I was like, oh, this is fantastic. I thought I was going to be too late. And
That's amazing.
yeah, now I get free coffee, but sorry, yeah, it was a long tangent of why I was talking about that. So I went to go get a coffee this morning and it rained here overnight. And so they just redid this. And so the floors are super slippery, which goes back to my ACL. And I opened the door and I walk in pretty quick and I slipped and I was like, oh man, like when you have a knee injury and like an ACL injury or any type of like
You're
injury and like
aware.
you start to realize, uh-oh, am I going down? Fortunately, I was able to grab like the other side of the door, but I told them, I was like, listen, like I've seen 3 people like slip like walking into this location, and I was just like, I've had an ACL surgery before. I would hate for someone else to get injured and you all to kind of be responsible for that. And so
That's
they
it.
ended up putting a mat down on it, but
It happens
it's
quickly.
crazy. It's forced me. So the injury has forced me to slow down and appreciate
Mm.
the small wins, like walking again. I mean, I was outside with my kids like a week or so ago, and they're now like at the point where they run into the street, which luckily we live on a very quiet street. So like there's 1 or 2 cars that come down over the course of a couple of hours. And so they're out there and I had to run and I was like, oh, hold on. I haven't done this before, but like my mind just drops blank and I have a little wall in my driveway. And so I had to jump up onto it and go and run out that way. And I didn't even think, I was like, oh man, like what if I just re-injured myself? But it's crazy to think about appreciating that. That was a small win. I was telling my physical therapist about that. They're like, oh, that's so so cool. But I feel like that mindset has translated directly over to work to really force me to slow down,
Yeah.
appreciate the small wins. And honestly, it's given me empathy for others. Everyone carries challenges that you don't see. And it's, you don't know what people are dealing with. And the world, unfortunately, is a very messed up place. But everyone's dealing with stuff. And some
Yeah.
people are more vocal about it than not. But it's also reinforced that hustle without health isn't sustainable. And putting people, even yourself, like first, it makes everything stronger. So yeah, I have my last physical therapy coming up, which I'm excited about. And then I have my last surgeon appointment coming up, which I'm happy about. And then hopefully I can go on my way to live a happy life.
And play baseball.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. I've been throwing, I've been swinging. They told me I could go back like this year towards the end of the year. And I was like, I would hate for something to happen because they say your risk for re-tear is like 12 months. If you can get beyond
Mm.
12 months, you're usually pretty good. And they were like, in July, they were like, you could have went back. And I was like, yeah, that's only, 9 months out. I
Yeah.
don't know if that's a good idea. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to wait. I'll go. I'll support the team. I'll be there.
That's
I'll
it.
practice, but then I'll come back next year. So
You'd be a very good water boy anyway. Like you can,
I
but
did. I did bring donuts from time to time.
oh, good. That's extra good. But to your point, slowing down, taking care of our health, such a core value. I mean, we're reminded of this daily. I mean, there's stuff happening in my life as well around me where I'm reminded of that very much. We take it for granted until something happens,
Yeah,
right? So it's
100%. Yeah, because I've played baseball my entire life, and like the worst injury that I ever had was a broken wrist from sliding into third base. Never had surgery in my life, and when I slid into third base, I remember my oldest, who's 7 now, she was literally 4 weeks old at the time, and I called my wife, and I was just like, she's like, "What's wrong? Aren't you at baseball?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "I think I broke my wrist." She's like, "You've got to be kidding me, right? We just had a child. How are you going to hold it?" And I was like, I don't know. And so now
Yeah.
I injured my ACL with my oldest at the trampoline park. And again, she was like, we have twins. We have 3 kids that, you're not going to be able to do anything for weeks. She's like, what are we going to do? Unfortunately, my mother-in-law and father-in-law live like one house behind us, like
Nice.
diagonally. So she stayed here for about 2 weeks. But yeah, I mean, you never
It's rough.
think it's going to be you. And then when it is, you're like, oh, wow, I didn't think it was going to be me.
Yeah. Yeah. So good segue on the rapid fire questions. Are you ready? I have a few questions for you. I do that with my guests and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
What would be your main passion outside of work that allows you to, disconnect?
I think my family in baseball. I've played
Mm.
baseball since I was 4 years old. I'm 38 now, and hopefully I'll play into my 50s or 60s. I can't switch to softball. I want to stay with baseball, but then having, 3 small kids as well, 3
Mm.
daughters, like being able to support and be there for them and be there for their activities, which again, I think has been incredibly important for me to make sure that
Yeah,
you're present has been really good.
for sure, for sure. I feel the same. So I guess it's a good side to the next question. So what's your why? What's the reason you wake up, and ready to do this every day?
I think it goes back to the family aspect of it. Again, the world is a messed up place. Stuff happens every day. And it's just, I think of my parents, your parents want you to have a better life for you and you're a kid and growing up. And then it's like when you're a kid and like you have children yourself, like you want to have your children to have a better life than you did growing up. And like for me, I think that's my why. Yeah, I've been pretty fortunate where, I didn't grow up with a lot of money and like my parents were fairly poor, but they helped me get into a position where, I've done pretty well for myself. And now, like for my 3 daughters, I want them to live an even better life. And again,
Yeah,
the world that we live in makes it somewhat challenging. And it's just, I want them to be able to speak up and live the life that they want to live and not be forced to live a certain life.
I love that. Very well said. Micro moments every day makes them we can be good role models.
Mm,
That's all it is, values.
exactly.
One marketing rule that you think you should be broken.
Ooh, that everything has to be measurable. I think some of
Mm.
the most important human interactions can't be tracked, and that's okay. I've always when I did a lot of like in-house stuff, like 80% of the activities that I did were tracked back to revenue. Makes sense. 20% of it was experimental. So that 20%, I didn't know if it was making an impact or not. And I think that's okay. I
Yeah.
learned this from Kyle Lacey years ago because he was also a big proponent of that. And I remember talking to him about it. And he always had that mindset. And I was like, I'm going to adopt that mindset because I was doing it, but like I never had an 80-20 rule, but it makes sense. So I've been doing that for years. And I think it's important to do.
As long as you are on the same page with the rest of the team and your CEO.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely.
So, best piece of advice you've given, or received about community?
Oof. I would say if it's not about the people, it's not a community. Goes back to the whole people first
Mm,
thing. Like we're humans. If you're not doing it for the people, it's not a community. It's not a group. It's self-serving to a certain
that's it.
degree.
I love it. I love it. That's it. Okay. I wanted to ask you about your book because you wrote a book on
Yeah.
influencer marketing. And so I guess it's an experience in itself, writing a book that we can potentially talk about. But I want to know more about what you think has changed maybe from maybe the first intent you had with writing the book. I'd love to know that. But is there anything that major that changed since you wrote the book that you would probably change or
Yeah, I mean,
revise?
yeah, I think, everyone says, "Oh, I wanna write a book." So I had
Yeah.
no intention of writing a book. Like, the publisher actually was following my content on LinkedIn for a while, and they
Hmm.
reached out and they were like, "Hey, you talk a lot about this topic. Would you ever be open to writing a book?" And this was now probably about 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago. And so I was like, "Yeah, I have no interest or time to write a book." And they were like, "No, listen, it's gonna be good." And they were very persuasive. They knew what they were doing, and obviously they pitch people all the time, so it probably makes sense. And I was like, listen, I know a book because I talked to Scott Lisa about this. I remember before, and he was like, you don't write a book to get rich. Like we're
Yeah.
not writing the Harry Potter books out there or whatever it is. We're not going to get rich off of a book, but use the book as a leverage point, and you're using that book to get other opportunities, whether it's other speaking opportunities, whether it's work or whatever it is. You use it as a thought leadership piece. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. And I was like, all right, you know what? I'll write the book. And they sent over the contract. My first mistake is I should have looked at the contract a little bit deeper. I didn't, and I just kind of was like, "Oh yeah, sign it, cool, awesome, let's do it." And funny enough, I was actually just going through it about 6 months or so, 8 months ago, and I was like, I should probably like double check this. And so I actually fed it into Chat GPT, and I was just like, "Tell me all the red flags with this contract." And the first thing that it came back with was they own the rights to the book 50, I think it's 50 years after I die. And I was just like, oh, wow, that's interesting. And the second piece was they can force me to write a second edition of it, which I didn't know. So
Out.
they could come to me and be like, hey, listen, we need you to write a second edition because the frameworks or whatever are outdated. I'm technically forced to do that. Now, I actually haven't made anything from the book because, I think I was making like $3 a book, but they were giving some away. And so I think I'm negative at this point, to be honest with you. So I did it. And, I wrote it about the creator economy because I think we were at, when I think of like the chasm, it's like we were at like kind of like the going up point. We weren't really crossing it yet. We were in the early adopter phase. And I just thought it would be something where there was so many resources on, hey, listen, like here's how to become a creator. Anyone can become a creator, but not every creator is an influencer as well. And I think there's a big
Mhm.
differentiation between creator and influencer. But on the B2B side, so many companies didn't know how to leverage it. So I wanted to write the book for them because I've seen it both sides. I've partnered with brands many times, and I've also worked in-house where I've built programs and partnered with creators and influencers. But it's, so often like, all right, go, we're going to go post on LinkedIn, and you're going to get that lightning strike for a day or two. And then what happens? They don't integrate it into everything else that they do. So I wrote the book for that. Now, when the book came out, because it actually came out on New Year's Eve, weird timing, and they overpriced it. And I was just like, I didn't do a great job of promoting it. I still don't do a great job of promoting it because it's one of the things I talk about. Like, I don't want to be known for like the creator side of it only because then I lose the marketing side. And I think that was one of the things why I had a creator economy newsletter, and it was cool, but like it's not really like it's a thing I can help companies with, but it's not the offer that I help
Yeah.
companies with. And I think going back to it now, like the book showed me that influence is about people, not platforms. Like trust is built one human interaction at a time and makes sense. But like the biggest lesson for me is credibility comes from showing up consistently with real value. And that's what people remember.
Mhm.
But I have it as a resource. I will probably never write another book again unless I'm forced to do it. But if I had to go back, I would probably focus it more on like just, go to market in general, maybe around people first or human aspect, because then I could use it in a lot of different areas. I feel like the creator side, yeah, they can be used as their own channel. They can be used as a tactic within other channels as well. But like still, it's early, it's not mainstream yet in B2B.
Mm.
And you can't just, again, use that as putting your eggs all in one basket and hope that, hey, you're going to use this book as everything. I
Yeah.
use it, but I don't use it a ton, to be honest with you.
No, it's more inbound than anything
Yeah.
else.
Yep.
To your point, it's kind of a side hustle at the same time, right? It
Yeah.
was almost a side hustle. On that topic, I was talking to my earlier guest, Adam Allgreen, on the importance of starting a side hustle when you have a full-time job.
Yeah.
And do you have a point of view on this? Like, where would someone with a full-time job listening right now, watching right now, how can they get started in developing their own framework or having something of value instead of just saying, I can offer marketing consulting or sales consulting? Is it to carve like a real niche or to go broad at first? How do you approach this?
Yeah, I think definitely going more niche is important. And again, I think that's why like people first work because they were like, oh, all right, it makes sense. But when you start to build the frameworks around that and like, how do you turn all these other marketing frameworks into a people first kind of mindset?
Mm.
It's something that people get interested in. And so like people are like, oh yeah, it's people have been doing like people first for years. It's just no one's actually named it. And so
Mhm.
I think, all of these things out there, event-led growth, that was another big
Yeah.
thing that was like, we were doing like event-led growth, but like event-led growth was around forever. It was just like no one put a name to it or coined it. And all these frameworks and things that are out there, they've been like, redone and changed and all of that. It's just people have
Repackaged.
yeah, repackaged. They're just finally putting a name to these things. But I think you have to find a spin on something, like something that's already out there that maybe you're leveraging, but how can you make it where people they care more about it because it can impact their everyday where it's not too broad where they don't care about. And then it's like, how can you give it away for free? Because that's like, if no one knows who you are, no, more than likely they're not going to pay for something. So it's like, hey, put it on any of these platforms, Gumroad or whatever it is, and let people just download it for free. Start to see your point of view. Then they see your LinkedIn content. Maybe they subscribe to your newsletter, and like you're doing all these
Mm.
things as a side hustle, which is cool. Ultimately, that's going to get people to believe in you and trust in you and work with you in whatever method that is.
Yeah, that's a good point. And start being uncomfortable at the same time, right? Because I
Yeah.
think being complacent is not a good idea in today's world.
Yes. Exactly.
There
I
is
I
too
agree.
much going on at the moment. I mean, people who are saying that AI won't replace us in knowledge worker, especially in marketing,
Yep.
I think are somehow wrong to some degree. I think we have hope,
Yeah.
but we have to carve that side of our work ourselves to make sure that we are relevant, we stay relevant.
Exactly.
It's not by becoming a go to market engineer necessarily that will solve the problem. Of course, it does help to know how to implement and
Yep.
go from concept to operationalization. But to your point, it's to go niche. I agree with you so much.
Exactly. And it's just, I mean, I don't think AI will take a lot of the marketing side, but I think those marketers that learn how to leverage AI in their workflow automations are going to be the people to watch out for. Those people are going to take your jobs because if, say you're a marketing team of, 5, 10, whatever the number is, and like I can automate a lot of the other stuff while doing my own stuff and bringing that human piece, like those automation workflows by using like all these different kind of AI pieces, that's going to be the unlock. Like it's not, hey, I need it to write a blog for me. Yeah, it can get me a little bit there, but like I don't need it to do that. I need it to automate all the things that like I don't care to do and that can be done fairly simple. Those are going to be the people to watch out for.
Yeah, good point. We'll see how things are developing over the next 3 years at the speed things are going. We don't know how far that's going to go, right?
Yep, exactly.
But That was a really good conversation, Nick. I appreciate your time. It was good reconnecting, getting to know a little bit more what you're doing at the moment. Thank you for your generosity and all the great pieces of advice and insights here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I was excited to get back and have a conversation because I feel like I still have so much to say, but no one wants to talk to me. So I appreciate it.
Thank you, Nick.